So guys, go ahead and put our laptops on. We can pay attention for today's lesson. Guys, this stuff really is not just going to blow your mind. A lot of these definitions you guys already know, so we're going to drive through the definitions very quickly. You're going to be doing a lot of drawing. I think it's important for you guys to have a visual dictionary with you on this, a visual glossary on what these terms mean. So let's go ahead and get everybody ready to focus on today's lesson. So looking at that, as you can see up here by the title, we're going to be exploring angles, basically angle pair relationships and what that means. Our objective is we have several today. We're going to go from the very mundane. Hello, this is an angle. This is how we label an angle. And then we're going to get into more complex situations where you actually have to think. So I think it's important again that we learn how to read the mathematics in order to handle the mathematics that's in front of us. And again, guys, you have to learn, I cannot stress this enough. You must, at some point, you must learn to read and understand what the definitions are. This course is heavy on definitions. If we don't bother at any point to learn what a bisector does, to learn what it means to be the midpoint, what it means to be an endpoint, what it means to be an acute angle versus an adjacent angle, then you're wasting your time in this class. That's why we're doing a lot of these kind of boring lessons up front.
What do you mean, like, you guys are draws?
What?
Like, you just keep saying, like, you guys said a draw, but I don't remember.
Like what?
No, it keeps telling, like, I know you guys said the draws.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll show you then. All right, so let's go ahead and start off here. So we got an angle. I want everybody in your notes right now to draw an angle. I don't care what the angle looks like, just draw an angle. All right, so we should all have our angle drawn. Some of you guys maybe drew obtuse angles. You maybe drew an angle that was acute, some of the one on the board. Maybe you drew a straight angle. Maybe you drew a right angle. Okay. So this is an angle. Guys, what is the definition of an angle? How do you create an angle? No, not 2 lines.
2 segments.
Oh,
right.
Good you.
Right. No, I know it. I know what it is.
It is at least 2 rays.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right, so an angle, as you can see up here on the board, it is actually 2 rays. And what's special about those 2 rays?
They connect at one similar
They
point.
share their endpoints.
So an angle is 2 rays that share an endpoint.
There you go. All right, so by definition, an angle is 2 rays with the same endpoint. Do you know, I think I went all the way through K-12 and all the way through college and never once thought about what an angle actually was. Never once. I don't know why. Never bothered. Like, to actually define an angle. So for purpose, I guess. Alright, so we look at this angle. We have 2 pieces that we must learn to identify this angle. Because in this class, it's all about specifics. I get into battle with specifics every single time I talk to my wife. And she's going to hate it, so I throw her under the bus every single time I teach. But I really do. It's specifics. Because she's telling me to go find something. I ask, where is it? She's like, it's in the drawer.
Which drawer?
So I say, okay, obviously. I'm like, which drawer? So I go, she's like, the 3rd drawer. So I go through the 3rd drawer. No, it's not the 3rd drawer. It's the stupid 3rd cupboard. There's a difference between a drawer and a cupboard. And there's a reason why we make a difference between the drawer and the cupboard. Because they are different. And in this class, you must learn to differentiate the specifics. Because if you don't, bad things happen. So we need to learn how to pay attention to small details. Are you ever going to use geometry again in your life? A very small amount. However, it's the byproducts of what you learn as you're doing geometry. learning to pay attention to small details, learning to read and draw a picture based on what you read, to interpret something new, to learn how to logically complete your argument. Those are byproducts of geometry that you'll use every single day in your life. I doubt any of you are ever going to have to worry about how to find the intersection point of two circles. It's just not going to happen. But you will learn, or you will need to learn how to argue in a logical manner. You will need to learn how to pay attention to very small details. Okay? So here's the first detail. The two rays, we call those the sides of the angle. Write that down. Those are called the sides of the angle. And the pointy piece of the angle. The pointy piece of the angle. I always remember this way because it kind of looks like a V anyway. That's called the vertex. Sometimes I have them where they disappear. Sometimes I have where I actually remove them. Alright, so we have the sides, which are the rays. The vertex is the end point. Okay, it's that sharp corner of the angle. So that's how we get our angles. They have sides and they have vertices. And we label them in a very specific way. And the reason why we do this is so we're all on the same page. We have a lot of letters that we're going to be throwing around in geometry. You got to learn to read and interpret what you're seeing. Okay, the first option. If you're really lucky, and there's a little tiny number down here in the corner, we would call that angle 3. And the way we represent angle 3 is we actually have an angle symbol. That's not an L. It's not the less than symbol. That's an angle line with a straight bottom. That's called angle 3. Okay. You won't really see that a lot. All right, the second option is the vertex might just be labeled point A. So what do we call that angle? Angle A. So angle A. And the third option, which is the preferred option, is using a 3-letter system. 3-letter system. And we are going to do this by adding 2 more points. B, A, C. And the guys, I cannot stress this enough. When we're naming the angles based on this, the vertex always goes in the middle. Vertex is always in the middle. You might make a special note of that in your notes. So we would call this angle B, A, C. And here's why we like doing this. Because now this tells me the direction that I'm going. I'm creating an angle that goes from B to A to C. That's the angle, from B to A to C. Or angle cap. Also call that CAB. Is that the same angle? In this figure, yes, that's the same angle. It doesn't flip it. That's still, so again, it doesn't really matter which order you go in, but the most important piece is vertex is in the middle. Okay, so now we're going from C to A to B. It doesn't flip the angle. It's just the same angle. All right. So before we go farther, any questions on naming angles? All right, let's go back to middle school. Woo! Yeah, this will be fun.
No.
I can't believe I have to revisit this. But this is middle school math. It's actually elementary math.